Joshua
My
Broome,
guy.
thank you so much for taking the time and being on here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man. I'm so sorry that I'm not in Austin, but I'm glad that we made that happen.
Yeah, one of these days we'll make it. We'll get together in the same city. And sometimes we're both speaking at a place, and we're kind of in and out. So these days that's when I do see you.
Yeah, so we're at two events, I think in March, I think or maybe June, because we're at an event in Georgia together, and then we're at Ignite together. So
That's Roanoke, Virginia,
Lynchburg.
Lynchburg. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So the
okay,
event's at Liberty. Yeah.
okay. So you went to Liberty, right? Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay. So 3 years ago, I was thinking about this last night. I was on a plane, and I was in the habit about 3 years ago of downloading a bunch of videos to watch while I'm traveling on tour, going somewhere. And I see one that was like very much clickbait for me, but it was like porn star to preacher or something like that, and it was Alan Parr.
Yeah.
It was Alan Parr's show, and I was like, that works for me. I'll take it. So I downloaded on YouTube and listened to it was like a 2 hour interview. Listened to the whole
Yeah.
thing, and on the plane, and was blown away by this story, and just couldn't. I mean, it was so much deeper than I could possibly have imagined. Fast forward a couple years or last year, I'm going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, get off of the plane, and there's this guy. It's you, right? And you're like, hey,
Yeah.
and I didn't put two and two together. And you're like, hey, are you going to this summit? You and I are both going to this Christian leadership summit thing in
Yeah.
Jackson Hole. And you're like, hey, you're going to this thing? I was like, yeah, I'm going. And you're like, well, what's your story? And I was like, I was in the country music industry. You're like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, how about you? And you said, well, I was actually in the porn industry. And I was like, wait a minute, the guy, you're the guy, you're the guy. And then I told you, about the Alan Parr interview, and then we became friends, and it's just been it's been fascinating to watch your journey, to read your book, and to see what the Lord has done in your life.
Yeah.
It's nothing short of a miracle. And anytime someone becomes a Christian, the Lord saves somebody, it's a miracle akin to the creation of the earth anyway.
Yeah. Amen.
And then, but to see something so dramatic, your story is so dramatic as the Lord saved you. And brother, I just love you, man. And I love your story, and I love what the Lord has done in your life.
Yeah, same here. Huge fan of seeing you just surrender everything and just be incredibly humble, and just love watching you from afar. Being a dad, I've got four young kids, and they're maniacs, and they want to be outside. They want to do all the stuff, um, and just like it's just amazing to see what God will do when you surrender and submit your life and say, hey, I'm going to lay down my plan. I'm going to lay down my wounds, my wins,
Mm.
all of it, and say, Lord, I want to serve you in the best way I know how. I want to steward my story in a way that doesn't point people to myself, that points people to you.
Mm.
And also that the struggle of God wanting to use you individually, same with me. It's like God wanting to use us individually to proclaim his glory, to be, a carrier of his word of reconciliation, but do it in a way where you're walking in humility, but you're doing it in a way that seems like, Lord, I don't want to be seen, but I want you to be seen, but I have to be seen for you to be seen in this way. Just like navigating through that, because I'm sure we'll get into my story to an extent, but for me, like, you get a theological education, and I wanted to teach the Bible, but I wanted to teach the Bible to like 15 guys in the woods, like
Right.
I didn't want any part of being on a stage or having a platform. I deleted social media. I wanted no part of it.
You deleted social
Um,
media. You went all in.
yeah. Yeah. I deleted social media. I even had like old tattoos I covered up. I had social media that I deleted. I mean, I literally tried to like disappear. Ironically, I had a Celtic cross on my shoulder. And then I had, not proud of it, but I'd gone out and, I had way too many drinks and I got a random person's name tattooed on my wrist. So I had I had both of those tattoos. And so I got that covered up, and the cross, the reason I got covered up because for me, it wasn't that I wanted to cover up the cross. For me, like that was is almost like a digital footprint of who I used to be. So like, I just wanted to, have a timestamp of like, hey, here is this on my arm. This is gone. Anything that I'm doing on this side of time, you can't attach to what I used to do. Like I think like that to an extent made sense to me, but yeah, I got this like koi fish like jumping out of water and like rocks and stuff. But I covered up like a really small Celtic cross I got when I was 18. Pretty sure it's the same one Justin Timberlake has.
Because it represented your own life in the porn industry, your old life in the porn industry.
Yeah.
Is that the thinking behind that?
Yeah.
Same with the random name on your wrist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was, so you come out, we're way out of order here, but you come out of the porn industry 2013. Is that right? 2012, 2013.
January of 2013. Yeah. So there was this 3-month, like just dark period of, I mean, we can get into it as much as you want, but like there's this 3-month period of where like I was struggling with suicidal ideation. Like there were people in my life that was dying left and right. And, there were just like death swirling around me. And then I had this like crazy interaction at this bank and called my mom and just like hightailed it, out of LA, where it's like, I don't want to have access to this place, anything that's in it. And just, kind of tucked my tail between my legs and ran home to mama in North Carolina.
So let me see if I can get this right. You're in the porn industry for like 8 or 9 years?
Like almost 7.
Oh, okay. Almost 7. So like 2006 to 2013.
Yeah.
You got into it because you were basically sweet talked as a young aspiring actor, moving to LA, broken childhood.
Yeah.
A dad that was non-existent in your life. And that's all kind of part of your story. You go to LA, aspiring actor, which is, to me, I think it's probably harder than the country music industry, but in the same way, the world kind of offers the same promises of stardom and fame and money as in country music. So I get it. And you got stars in your eyes. It's exciting. California, the weather is amazing. Everyone's pretty and happy, it seems. They have nice cars, and it's like, I could do this, And then all of a sudden you get swept off your feet by these people at a restaurant, right?
Yeah. I mean, you painted the picture 100% correct, where it's like I grew up. My mom had me she got pregnant at 15, had me at 16, super, super small town. I think a thing that kind of impacted me as a child is that my dad was in physical proximity of me in this small town, like, a town of like 2,000 people, one gas station, one grocery store. So I would see the man that was my dad, but he was never my father in my life. My mom worked at a restaurant where across the street we could see a gas station. That gas station was named Rogers, and my dad, that was his dad, Rogers. So he was a junior. So he was, Roger Dale Jr. So I would see the gas station that my grandfather owned, and I would see him often drive up in his green Z71. And I knew that was my dad, but he was never my dad. So I just think, the way that, just attachment theory or just like emotions are developed, where like as you're growing up, you have, people and experiences in your life and in your brain, you try to navigate through what is this emotion like? What is this emotion attached to? And regarding, this conflict that I didn't have, a solution for, I believed, well, if I can't understand why he doesn't want to be my dad, it must be my fault. So if that is the truth, then maybe I am the solution. And as most men or most people are high achievers, I thought, well, if I can earn enough, if I can become enough, maybe I will feel as if I am enough. And what I just wanted to hear, man, was, son, I'm proud of you. I wanted to hear that so bad. And I thought, well, maybe the next best thing is becoming, great student, great athlete. Maybe there was a conquest of achievement or an accolade or an award or something that would mitigate that feeling, that wound, that deficit. And so, I lived my life, doing, well, but doing well in the hope of that accomplishment or affirmation would mitigate the wound that I had. And that drove me, to do good things and to be successful and to work well. But, the thing that was driving me was unhealthy. And, I get in a place where I started modeling and acting when I was around 12, 13 years old, predominantly modeling, studied theater in college, moved to LA, had a great manager, had great representation. But again, it was almost this like weird thing where I wanted to succeed in acting, and I was doing relatively well in modeling, but that's not what I wanted to do. It was just kind of something that, was in the same ecosystem. So in the middle of that, like you were saying, 3 headhunters came up to me. They're like, hey, would you ever, be interested in doing a porn? And, I'd seen pornography for the first time at 13, and, not growing up in a home where, there was a mom and dad, my grandmother and grandfather, even, they slept in separate rooms. And it's like, I didn't have a visible representation of what intimacy was or looked like. And, as Romans 12 talks about, it's like either being conformed by the world or transformed by the renewing of your mind. And for me, the thought of what intimacy was or looked like was shown to me in the pages of a magazine when I was 13. And that the feelings and the emotions that were tied to that was like, man, in a way, if I replicate what I see, maybe I'll feel what I don't. And that
it took you a long time to figure that out. Like you didn't think that at the time.
No.
You're very wise now looking back that you're able to identify this is why the building blocks happened in that.
Oh yeah. This is like, this is 11 years removed from it, counseling, working in the mental health space myself. But yeah, there's these building blocks for, how you see the world. It's like, that's essentially what my book is about. It's like, if you believe a lie to be true, well, you will live as if that lie is truth, and you will incorporate that lie into your worldview. And that impacts the way that you interact with people, the way that you see yourself, the way that you see life, the way that you see God, the way you see everything.
Wow.
And, man, I was this broken kid that just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be needed and known. And it was just this catastrophe of collateral damage and collateral, like, bad decision after bad decision.
Perfect storm.
And I think like the dangerous thing is that, once I did one film and I got, my manager, like 2006, different world. 2006, my manager's like, you did a porn. Like, we can't represent you. We don't want to be tied to your likeness. We can't. I think a lot of you, but sorry. And then all of a sudden, as then a 22-year-old, I believed, well, the only thing that is logical, the only thing that I can do is continue doing what I did that got me into this mess, which is, is like the worst thinking ever. Continue doing the thing that like created, this catastrophe in your life.
But very logical. Outside of the
Yeah.
Christian worldview, what you did was very logical. And the headhunters, you call them, as they came up to recruit you in the restaurant.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds very much like human trafficking.
Oh, I would say this, again, I use this language like being very much entrenched in this work on the other side. But a lot of people ask me regarding pornography, like, does force, fraud, or coercion, which is how someone would define trafficking, does that exist within the porn industry? I said, no, it doesn't exist. It's completely dependent upon. So they're synonymous. And then like I've never met a person that was in the industry that was not trafficked. There's not a person that I knew that was, that was a long tenured person that was in the industry, that wasn't doing, escorting, that wasn't doing all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, we can get into the weeds of that, to the extent that you would want, but it's like, yeah, man, like those headhunters, they were being compensated by an agent where they would find someone. Even the conversation with the agent. So, they said, hey, do you want to meet with our agent if you want to do a film? And I meet with the agent. The first question he asked me is, how did I grow up? AKA, do I come from a broken home? Is there brokenness in your life that I can use as ammunition to manipulate you with my words so that you will do what I want you to do? Like, Are you a broken vessel that I can extract value from so that I can manipulate you? And, can I frame porn in a way that okay, you want to be an actor, you want to be, whatever. Well, in pornography, they're moving towards like parodying movies, so you can use those talents. You seem like you're a great actor, you're a good-looking kid, you want to be famous, you make money. Well, this might not be mainstream acting, but maybe you can be a star in this world. So like just taking, innocent questions and manipulating a broken person to get them to do what you want, that's in the, as broken as it is, man. It's not far removed from the stuff you would see in some of the darkest places in the world.
Man, and the fact that that very first gig, they picked you up in a town car to take you to the shoot, that makes one more level of difficulty for you to back out. You don't even have your own car there.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I get there. But I mean, even like, I would say like, even like back up to that, it's like, okay, the first thing we need you to do is, you're going to get a full panel STD and AIDS test. They're like, you're a good looking guy. You've probably like, you've probably hooked up with a few girls. Like, would it hurt you to like get tested? And I'm like, okay, I've been pretty promiscuous, like in college, I probably not a bad idea. So I get that. And that's kind of like, your work permit. So you have to have a new test every, depends on what company you're working for. Some companies require a 14-day test where it can't be older than 14 days. The oldest test you can have is like 28 days, but essentially you have to go get a test. And then like, to your point, they pick you up in this town car. And it's like, oh, we're going to take care of you. Like, don't worry about where the address is. We'll pick you up at this time, and then we'll drop you off after you're done. And then you get there, and then you get there, and it's like, well, sign this. This is how you get paid. Well, again, in retrospect, I did not read it. I just signed where here's the highlighted portions. Don't worry about reading it. Just sign here, and this is how you get paid. But what was I signing? I was signing away. I was saying, hey, I'm going to be an independent contractor that's going to be compensated a one-time fee, and what they're going to get is they're going to get 100% rights to any audio, video, or sound that was recorded that day. And they have the right to partition it and sell it to as many third parties for as long as they want. And there's no limit on how many people own this. So what happens is you do one scene, then all of a sudden, my likeness ends up on sex toys, on dating websites, on billboards. And all of a sudden, like, people are asking, are you getting royalties? Royalties do not exist in the porn industry because you are not a person, you're a product. So it's like you get paid, $500 for that day, and they're going to get, they're going to use all that stuff. So that's how that was day one.
Day one. And your story gets so much worse after day one. That's what's wild.
Yeah.
That's what's wild. So let me ask you, you're 12 years removed of this?
Yeah.
12 years
Yeah.
this month. Do you still see, what was your name?
Yeah. Rocco Reed.
Do you still see Rocco?
I mean,
does that ever come up?
Well, I would say there's not a day that goes by that I don't get some kind of notification of like someone trying to abuse my likeness. It's like I have a really great team that, we had to work really hard to get my IMBD like changed because it said, it didn't say like, Joshua Broome, AKA like, it was like, your name is Rocco Reed, also known as Joshua Broome. And, it was just crazy. But I think, and I think there's just like really beautiful parallel to kind of wrap your head around where, think about a troll on social media. Do they ever have a profile picture? If they do, it's something obscure and their username is always something random. Why? If I can remove myself from like who I'm identifying as, I can operate in a behavior that's different or apart from who I actually am. So in the porn industry, from the jump, okay, well, you're not going to go by Joshua Broome. It's like, well, all the people that say, "Man, I love my job. I love my job." Well, if you love it so much, why do you want to be removed from what you do? Why do you want to go by this, this pseudonym? Because you're more willing to compromise because Joshua Broome wouldn't do these things, but maybe this other person would.
Yeah. I think that's such a fascinating part of your story because when we think about the Bible and we think about God changing names, Abraham, Jacob, Israel, we think about Saul to Paul, Simon, Peter, the name going backwards and taking your name away from you, the opposite of what God has done, is what the enemy has done through that porn industry. We're going to take your name away from you so that you'll be more likely to go down this sinister road. And then, which we can get to in a minute, to the bank teller.
Yeah.
It was that the impactful moment was when your name came back to you.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, at that point, I'd been in the industry, well over 6 years. And I thought like, growing up as a kid, like, food stamps and, I got one like pair of basketball shoes a year. Like my mom's amazing, but it's like, this was how I grew up. And I believed, well, man, if I had $1 million and, every feeling of insecurity or feeling of like worthlessness would just melt away. And I would just be healed miraculously because there was an additional comma in my bank account. And then I made that money and guess what? Nothing changed. And then I thought, well, if I win Performer of the Year, that means that the studios and the fans attached to that industry had voted that I was the guy. Got nominated 4 years in a row. And then in 2012, I won Performer of the Year. And then, this crazy as this is, like this, I guess in retrospect, in the world that we live in today, it's not that crazy. But the award show was aired live on Showtime. And you think, you go up, you get this award, and it's like, it's this huge deal. And it's like, you made it, you're the guy. And I thought, man, if I won that award, like that means I'm somebody.
Yeah.
And
look
in
at
a
me
weird
now,
way,
Dad.
yeah, in a weird way, it was like I wanted so desperately to feel chosen because I felt like my dad didn't choose me my whole life. And I won that award, and that was the worst I ever felt.
Why?
Because it didn't make me feel like I thought it would. It was like, I won. That's awesome. But I still felt the same. And I was like, I thought like when I won that, that feeling like I was not worth anything would just go away. So when that didn't work, the anxiety that I had that I was trying to suppress was amplified. The depression that I already had that I tried to suppress with a million things. It was deepened. And then, man, it's just like from that moment, like you enter into like a 3-month period of my life where it couldn't have been darker. And I'm literally trying to sabotage my life and trying to do things. I was trying so hard to live my life in a way where it gave me the courage to end my life.
How soon were you realizing I'm not getting the fulfillment I thought I was going to? I mean, are we talking about that night you go home with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had one of like I was in a suite at the Venetian, so they always had, that was where the award show took place, and I like I didn't go to there was an after party at somewhere, didn't go. Um, I was being paid to like sit in the VIP section. And it's like, people would pay. It's like, if you pay to be in the VIP section or buy a bottle, it's like you'll have access to like these people.
Yeah.
I didn't go. I just went up to my room and I just like looked myself in the mirror and I thought, man, it didn't work. And
I don't think I
not only
realized that. That was that was like a catalyst for you. That was like a game changer. Winning the performer of the year in the porn industry was a game changer.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was one of the lowest moments of my life because, I mean, it was almost like, here's this thing. And I mean, it's like, it's beautiful in that, again, this is, having the wisdom to look back.
Yeah.
Romans 2:4 talks about God's love, his kindness, his patience that leads us into repentance. And I think in a way, God loved me enough to give me everything that I thought that I wanted so that I would realize that it wouldn't fix me.
Amen. Yeah.
So it's like, sitting there, looking myself in the mirror and then, just grab the bottle and, drank it until I, had enough to like pass out. And then that's how, was getting calls and stuff like that. And just wanted nothing to nothing, didn't want to be around anyone. And it's like, man, I love and respect you enough to, like share this part of my story because, keep it, ditch it up to you. But, things got super dark for me really quickly. There was because I would do like bartending, like shirtless bartending for, like different like fashion designers and stuff like that. And they would pay me ridiculous amounts of money to like come to Paris or wherever they were and to like the bartend parties or just like to hang out. And soon after that, I did one of those and I got drugged and sexually assaulted by, the owners of a well-known designer. And after that happened, it was almost like, number one, of course this happened, it's your fault for being there. This is the way I was thinking. And then I was like, this is almost good because like, this is a legitimate reason for me to end my life. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. There was a bottle of pills that I had that I knew, I had looked up as like, if I take X amount, that's going to do the trick. And I would put them on the table. I'd line them up. I'd get the water. And I'd look at them and I just couldn't do it. And that happened probably 15 times. And then I thought, okay, well, what do I need to do to continue to sabotage my life? And I thought, well, this has already happened to me. And then doing porn is the only thing I can do. So maybe, I keep getting, because like in the time that I was in the industry, you were getting offers from like gay companies. It's like, well, if you will sign a contract with us, name your price. We'll give you, $1 million a scene, like whatever, like you just tell us. And I thought like, well, maybe if I do that, after I do that, maybe then I would have the confidence to end my life and I would be essentially removed from the industry. in that, because like in 2006, 7, 8, like in this time period, like girls would not work with guys who did gay porn. Studios, like straight studios, would not hire guys that did gay porn. There was this like feeling of, in that industry, in both industries, really, people were dying of HIV. There was this, this feeling towards the gay side of the industry. So I accepted a contract and I did a film. And then after doing it, I thought, okay, there's this movie, gosh, forget what it is. It's a Christian movie where this girl, she's like working at a brothel, redeeming love. She's working in the brothel. She meets a guy. They start this great life together, and then she just gets this itch to go back into chaos. She goes and works at the brothel one more time and feels disgusting. And she's in this river, and she has a rock, and she's just scrubbing her body with it to the point where she's like about to bleed, and she's trying to scrub off something that she feels, but that feeling's not on her skin. And that's how I felt. And then I'm like, man, maybe this is going to be it. And I stayed in that industry for a few weeks, and I did a few films like that. And then after I'd done like the last one, I'm like, okay, like this is it. But then I'm like, I just need one more person to agree with me, because I think it's sometimes when we superimpose our brokenness onto intimacy and love, what we can believe is like intimacy is compliance, not connection. And we can try to manipulate another person to agree with us. And, with bad theology, we could say, well, you should surrender or submit to me because I have authority in this hierarchy of you biblically. But what's happening is I'm not wanting you to submit to me as a godly husband. I'm wanting you to comply with me. So I'm trying to use my emotions to manipulate you to get you to do something so I feel some sort of way. And I say all that to say that thinking drove me into that bank. In that bank, I had a check, and on the memo of the check, it said, what I was being compensated for. It was clear. A lot of times, directors would do that, almost being antagonistic. Be very grotesque in the memo of the check. So normally, I wouldn't take this and hand it to a teller. I would just, Dropbox, ATM, whatever.
Okay, let me pause you, Joshua, because this is such a crazy part of your story.
Yeah.
And to give context, because I know I'm learning new things today for sure, but I know a lot of your story. I've heard you say it when we're on the stage together, and I've heard you say it on different podcasts. But part of this manipulation that you're talking about, and you're in the gay industry for 2 weeks, you said. Well, part of that manipulation, like you didn't sign up when the headhunters came into the restaurant. It didn't start that way. It wasn't like, hey, buddy, do you want to do gay porn? No, it's just levels, right? It's these levels they build you up at. And you mentioned that they say things like, what's the extent of what you would be willing to do?
Oh yeah.
That's how
so
it
it's
starts.
like, so when you get in the industry, you have a no list, right? So these are things that I don't want to do, or people that I choose not to work with. And, but the way it works is, this is like for guys also, but predominantly for girls, where it's like, there's things that you're not willing to do, and time will pass. And then, the girl will begin to not be as popular as she once was. Right. And then the agent goes to the studio and auction off this thing where it's like, she hasn't done this sex act before. And how much would you pay for her to do it? It's like, okay, top bidder, 30,000. Okay, perfect. And then the agent goes back to the girl and says, you'll never believe it. out of nowhere, this studio says they want to give you $30,000 if you're willing to do that thing that you've never done. And I know you said that you didn't want to do that, but just let me tell you this. You'll be relevant again. People will start booking you again. Your name will rise and you'll be a star again. So if you just do this thing that's just one time and they're going to pay you, X amount of dollars. So in the porn industry, your no list is not really no, because you don't really have a no. Like you can, if you believe that you're not someone who does porn, you are a porn star. It's like my only attachment to worth is that I sell myself for sex. So if that's true, if that's the only thing that I can say yes to, what can I truly say no to? Nothing. So my no loses its validity. So I would say in the porn industry, your no doesn't mean no. Your no means how much.
Wow. So then fast forward, you're suicidal. You've lined these pills up. You know the exact amount of pills to take to end your life. You even had the glass of water to take the pills. And you said you did that like 15 times. Yeah. And this is the state you're in. Yeah. I mean, you spent 2 weeks in the gay industry. You've surpassed all the no's that you once said you wouldn't go this far. You surpassed it all. You've won Performer of the Year. Did you win that? How many times did you win that?
So I got nominated for it 4 times, but I won it once.
Okay. So you're suicidal. You've won the top award. And now you're going to cash a check.
Yeah.
Rocco's going to cash a check. You haven't even heard. Yeah. Joshua's gone. Joshua's dead.
Yeah. And 100%. And it's like I had, an LLC, it was like, I don't remember what it was, but yeah. So like Joshua Broome had no place at the table.
Yeah.
And I'd say, we can dig into this in a little bit if you want, but it's like, for me, like when I got fired by my manager, it was one thing. But, being from a small town, it only takes one person to know one thing about your life for everyone to know everything about your life.
Yeah.
Got through the grapevine that, I had done that. My uncle heard at work, and then he went and told my mom, and then my mom calls me, and she, being from the South, it's like how much of your name gets used is how much trouble you're in. So I hear, Joshua Luke Broome, like, tell me the truth right now. Like, did you do this? And I had to tell my mom I did do one of those films. But for me, I wasn't sure about much. Like Granger, I wasn't sure about much as a kid, but something I was super sure of was that I was my mother's son. If I needed something, she was there, no matter how hard she had to work. If I wanted, somehow, some way, I don't know how she did it, but I went to, basketball camp at University of South Carolina every year. I was in high school. I don't know how she made that stuff happen. Cause like we were struggling, but she was always there for me, always protected me. Anything I needed, she was there. So I was certain that I was my mother's son. If I didn't know anything else, I was that. And then, when my mom was hurt, when I told her like, yeah, I did that. And then that's when Satan amplified a lie that I believed about myself. Because when I hurt her, when I hurt the only person that had never hurt me, there was a little voice in my head that's like, see, you're exactly who you thought you were. Like, that's why your dad didn't want you. You're no good. Of course you did that. Of course you hurt her. Of course you made that decision. This is not something you did. This is who you are. You're exactly who you thought you were. And man, and that caused me to believe another lie, that I had disqualified myself from being her son. Like what good could I do in her life?
The only thing you knew for sure. Now you're disqualified from even that.
Yeah. So she was calling and texting me, but I didn't answer because what am I going to say? So it's either, I wallow in my shame or I run from it, I certainly wasn't going to own up to it at that time. So, to your point, I'm in this bank, I'm walking in with this check, and what I wanted the bank teller to take the check, to look at it and to see the memo and to tell me you are as disgusting as you think you are.
What was the memo?
You are.
What was the memo?
I mean, it was like a title of a movie. I mean, it was clear that I was being compensated for sex. You know, it was
gotcha.
You know, so it was clear that I was in a porn movie and I was being paid for my actions in it. But I just wanted, I wanted her to agree with me so that I could do what I wanted to do. And she was unshaken by it, looked at it, what's your account number, swipe the card, deposited the check. And then I'm dumbfounded. I'm already shaking, pale, like ready to die, but terrified. And then she came around the corner and said, "Joshua, are you okay? Joshua, how can I help you? Let me get you some help." Because it was obvious I was not okay. And that was the first time I had heard Joshua come from someone's lips talking to me in well over a year. And it was almost like it woke me up. It woke me up out of this plausible reality that I'd created based on shame and hurt and pain. And I felt guilty. And I felt guilty because I was withholding from my mom the thing that she more than deserved. She just wanted to know that her son was okay. Like in this industry, to this day, there's 42 people that I was friends with that have died of suicide or overdose. 42. These are people.
I've seen interviews with Alan. It was like in the 30s, and so it's going up. It's going up now. That is unbelievable to me. That's one of the craziest things. I will never. I told you this in Jackson Hole. I will never forget that you said that. Over 40 people you knew in that industry are now dead. So much so that you said, if you watch a porn today, there's a really good chance, especially the girl, is dead from suicide.
And what's so twisted about it is, like, in the porn industry, when someone dies that way, they make a compilation of all their scenes and they try to monetize the thing in which they caused their demise. Yeah, man. So it's like, that's the reality of the industry. But yeah, so it's like, I mean, she came across, she came around the corner and,
God, it's almost like God spoke to you that day in the bank.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. God said, "You okay, Joshua?"
And what I love is, like, number one, like, our names have meaning. It's like Joshua literally means Yahweh's salvation. It's like,
what a name, man. What a name.
But what it did, it
taking
kind
the
of like
people across the Jordan River. That's you, man. That's your namesake.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like to rock Kazakh, to be strong and courageous,
My brothers Tyler and Parker and I own this apparel company called Yee Yee. It's a lifestyle brand. We have yeeyee.com. But I'm not good at that kind of technical stuff. I don't build websites. I don't take credit card information. That's where Shopify comes in. They handle all of our customer checkout. They make it super easy. And they do it for millions of companies. It's not just us. Small ones, big ones, and all the ones in between. So if you're thinking like, hey, this is the year, I'm thinking 2025 is the year I want to finally start that business, consider Shopify for your checkout needs. So upgrade your business and get the same checkout that we use at Yee Yee with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Granger, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Granger to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Granger. If you like the content in this podcast, hey, consider sharing it with a friend, subscribing to this podcast, giving it a good review if you want, and commenting on the YouTube page. These are all things that help this podcast reach more people. If you want to get a hold of me personally, you can go to cameo.com/GrangerSmith. I can make you a video message for anything that you want. It could be happy birthday, happy anniversary, maybe just a word of encouragement. Go to cameo.com/GrangerSmith.
But, so like after that, so like I was like, man, I got to call my mom. And I call her and, man, she lit me up. She chewed me out because she was hurt, But then after she was done, she said to me everything that I didn't think she ever would. She was like, "You'll always be my son. I'll always love you. And I beg you, please leave this place. You're worth so much more. You're so much more capable than what you're doing. You know, you're worth more than the way you're living." And I listened to her, and I left. And it's like so many people get my story wrong, in that they're like, "Oh, this guy left porn to become a preacher." And it's like, man, when I left porn, I was still so far from God.
Right.
He was obviously, interceding on my behalf and beginning to work. But when I left the porn industry, there was a 2-year period where, the way that I describe it, I tried to put enough good dirt on my bad dirt so I didn't look dirty. I started working in the health and fitness space. And it's like, essentially I did the same thing I was doing in the porn industry. I like, okay, how can I become the most successful? It's like, okay, find a great mentor, get a bunch of credentials, find the best gym to work at, and then, work really hard and become the best in my field and make a lot of money. And I did that.
Is this the season where you deleted social media and covered tattoos? Okay.
Yeah. So in the middle of this, it's like, I'm because I was never like, I didn't have any value, but I thought maybe, the things in which my mom instilled in me was, to love people well and to work really hard. Like my mom has an incredible work ethic, and it's like, man, if like all I know, like whether I'm eating, chicken wings or, playing pickleball or, whatever it is, it's like, I want to win and I'm going to give it 110%. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to be, in the health and fitness space, it's like, I want to, become an expert in, food. I want to like understand, movement patterns. I want to understand exercise science. I want to understand programming. And then I just like dove into that and had a really great mentor and, became really successful in that. But like in the middle of that, I just replaced one thing with another, because I was trying to earn my worth. And I thought if I did enough and had enough, I would feel as if I was enough.
Right.
And it worked for a while because the newness numbed my pain until it didn't. And then 2 years into that, this girl comes strolling into the gym and, decked out in Iowa Hawkeye cheerleading stuff. And, but she was the best athlete in the gym. Obviously she had a background in gymnastics, but she was the best athlete in the gym, but, wasn't boastful, wasn't flirtatious, didn't hang around, very introverted, just came in, worked really hard, kept her head down and like left. But I was just fascinated with her. And then I asked her on a date probably, 10 times. She said no in the most polite way. And she eventually said, well, before church on Sunday, I go for a long run. And if you want to meet me, you can meet me at this park. And I was like, I'll take whatever I can get,
Yeah.
And I meet her at this park. And I was like, man, I was so fascinated with her. But then reality creeped into my mind. I'm like, remember who you are. And I'm like,
the enemy was still talking to you.
Yeah.
You might have been 2 years removed from the hellhole, but the enemy was still speaking.
Oh, yeah.
You were still a sinner in need of a savior.
Oh yeah. And it's like, so, we before our run even started, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know this about me before like this even has the potential to become anything. I'm this kid that his daddy didn't want. And I've done a lot of stuff that I'm ashamed of. I've done pornography and it's on the internet for anyone to see. It will probably always be there. And just so you know, I'm this really bad person. This is who I am. And, she's, hit with this jab to the nose of like something that she didn't expect to hear. So she was pretty taken back by it. But then I just saw the wheels turning and we were kind of walking in silence, like this very uncomfortable silence. And then she stopped and like gave me, this look. She was an elementary school teacher. So like she gave me like this look where like she was going to say something stern, like can't kind of planted her feet and said, "Hey," she said, "Hey, I want you to know, I don't want to minimize your pain or negate anything you said, but I want you to know that you are not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. And you won't be defined by the greatest thing you'll ever do. Because there's an author of you, and it's not you."
Incredible. This is incredible.
And I mean, just like, so like anyone listening to this, like if you're with us, like in this story, it's like, I believe the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's like, so she was challenging, like not only the way that I thought, she was challenging everything that I believe to be most true. Like I am defined by the worst thing I've done.
Yeah.
And I hope to be defined by the greatest thing I'll ever do. I'm hoping to do something great enough to cover up or overshadow the reality of what will never go away. And she, and then she stopped. She's like, "Hey, do you know who God is?" And I was like, I went to church a little bit as a kid. But maybe, probably not. She's like, "Well, I've been following Jesus since I was in the 7th grade. I'm not perfect by any means, but my life is based on a foundation that's built through my relationship with him. So what kind of food do you like?" I was like, "You are insane." Like I thought I was crazy. Like you're crazy. But I mean, it was, I love like thinking about like Colossians 4, like, Paul's, imprisoned for preaching the gospel, praying for opportunities to preach the gospel, praying to walk with wisdom towards outsiders, thinking, hey, let our speech be gracious and seasoned with salt so we might know how we ought to answer each person. I love this book, Master Plan of Evangelism. Robert E. Coleman, he says, most people are not looking for an explanation. They're looking for a demonstration. So thinking about like the way in which she responded to me, it stopped me in my tracks and it created this curiosity in me. It's like, how in the heck can she respond to what I said like that? And maybe, just maybe, is what she's saying true? So we walked and talked, and then she invited me to church. And then we went to church, and I was like, I'm not sure about church, but I'm sure about wherever she's going. I'm following her.
Sure.
And I walked into this church in Raleigh, North Carolina, not expecting much. And I'll give you the abbreviated version, but I walked in and, I was expecting a legalistic presentation of how far I was from God and how I would never get close to him because, of who I am. And that was what I believed to be true. And I heard this old man that reminded me of my grandfather, with tattoos on his arms, and he was wearing jeans, and he told this story out of 2 Samuel chapter 9 about Mephibosheth and how David had invited Mephibosheth into his kingdom, and Mephibosheth, being the son of Jonathan, he was expecting death, and that's why he was in this place called Lodabar, this place of no pasture, thinking that I need to hide because if I'm found historically, because my dad was Jonathan, my father was Saul, and now David had been chosen and anointed to be king. That meant that, I'm on the outside looking in, and anyone that was attached to a family that was of a former kingdom or a potential, challenger of the kingdom, that person was hunted down and eradicated. They were killed. So he thought, like, my head is on the platter. And then David invites him to his kingdom after he's been hiding. He thinks, okay, doomsday, today's the day. And David instead says, "Hey, I'm going to invite you into my kingdom. I want you to, I want to give back to you your grandfather's land, which isn't just any land. It was part of Canaan. So he's inviting him into the kingdom of God, saying, you're going to be part of my kingdom, and you're going to have a seat at my table, not for a day, not for a week, but forever." And, this is a beautiful picture of grace, mercy being, the withholding of what we do deserve, grace being this unmerited favor that we don't deserve. We see this. And in 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 8, Mephibosheth responds to this by saying, "Who am I? I'm but a dead dog. I don't deserve this." Don't. And essentially what I heard and the reason that part of the Bible comes so alive to me, because essentially he's saying, don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
Don't you know who my father is? Don't you know the sin that I'm attached to?
Yeah.
And then he read Hebrews 12:2. He read that, with joy set before him, that he endured the cross, scorning our shame. He's seated down on the right hand of God. But it's like, something about joy, just like explosion happened in my head. I was like, okay, so like I'm with you. You're saying that Jesus, born of a virgin, fully God, fully man, lived a perfect life, faced temptation, never sinned, goes to the cross, but he's God. So of course he's obedient to the Father, but he's omniscient. So he's all knowing. Why would he have joy in his heart as he's going to the cross? Where does joy come from? And then it hit me. He loved me. He had joy in his heart because he loved me. And I was like, and yes, I mean, like when that hit me, I fell to my face and just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And when I stood up, I made a decision that, I didn't have my theology perfect, but I believed that Jesus was real, and he was a real person. He really walked the earth, and he knows me, and he loved me enough to die for me, and he rose from the dead on the third day. And if I place my faith in him, then not only am I saved from hell, but I'm reunited to the Father that I've never had.
Wow.
And that was 10 years ago. That was 10 Easters ago. And and that girl, her name's Hope, which is pretty cool. And we've been married for 9 years, and we have 4 boys. And like God is taking me on this journey that, like there's like my version of what, Ephesians 3:20 could be. But like God, he far exceeded anything I could hope, dream, or imagine, because we're just being loved by him is more than enough. But the fact that he would allow me to be, that he would allow me to be a husband to a person like her, and to experience the love that we collectively have shared, seeing our 4 kids born and look at me and call me dad, and me provide safety to them. And it's not better than anything I ever hoped. Like I would have never had the guts to dream of the life that I have today. And like all the stuff that I get to do, like that's amazing. But just that, like.
Do you, with your 4 boys now, how often do you kind of think about that? Think about a moment where you're talking to them and you just say, son, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, dude. I I mean, yesterday it's like we were out, just playing. We bought like a T-ball set, and it's like, I bought them like legitimate like aluminum bats. Got some, nothing crazy, just like some Eastons, and so Cannon is 6, and Lincoln, he's about to be 5. And so we were out there hitting T-ball. He's like, had his like Cannon's a perfectionist. So he's like, do I have my feet in the right place, Dad? Do I have my elbow up, Dad? And then, he's, smoking them, and just looks at me, and like, it's just such a reminder to me where like, I have a tendency to, want to give them the world,
Yeah.
to buy them stuff, to do stuff, but the thing that they want most is me. And, like the look in his eyes where I'm like, buddy, I'm so proud of you. You did such a good job. And just to see his eyes just melt, because that's what his heart wants. And it's like, loves to draw and stuff like that. It's like I travel, sometimes every week, and, he always, like will draw like a little, he'll draw something wild, but then he'll put, to Dad, love you, Cannon. Like that. I'll never get, tired of that. I remember like when he was born, it's like, never been around babies or had been a long time, and he was born, and he's born, he's all like slimy and cone-headed and ugly, and it's like, and I'm freaking out because like, so Cannon was so Hope's water broke during a CrossFit class. Like, she's doing like wall balls and deadlifts, and her water breaks, and I'm coaching the class, and I freak out, and I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, we're going to, we just bought our first home, and like, we went there, and it's like stuff was barely unpacked. And she had sticky notes for me. Here's a bag that I packed 3 months ago. Your toothbrush is here. Get this, get that. And then we go there, and we go to the hospital, and because her water broke and she was dilated enough, they kept her at the hospital, but it was 24 hours later that he was born. So I'm on edge for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So at 4:21, he was almost like a stoner baby. So he was born on 7/11, 4:20, almost 4:21. 4:21 in the morning, he's born. And I'm just like, I hadn't been asleep. I'm just like, out of my mind. And the nurse is holding him, and she's wiping him off, lays him in the warmer, and she's like, you can touch him. And I'm like, am I going to touch him, or my hands are clean, And when I start to reach in his direction, he grabs my finger. I just started to sob, and in my spirit, I heard God say, I love you more than that. And so like part of that, so that's why we named him Cannon. Like, Cannon in Hebrew means measuring stick. So it's like, for us, he's the measure of God's grace, But I'll never forget that. Like when I recall it, I always get emotional, because it's like, I feel like, I'm still, it's still there,
Yeah.
But just the joy of being all of their dads, Abel just turned 1 a few weeks ago, and it's just like, just started walking, and it's just like, it's just wild to see them to get older, and be able to walk, and then say certain things, and tie their shoes.
Oh, yeah, man. And you're able to see that. You're able now because you were loved.
Yeah.
And you were loved by God. And this is your testimony. And it's actually mine too. And it's so many people that because you're loved regardless of what you've done.
Yeah.
And regardless of all the bad things you've done. And hey, you don't have to be in the porn industry to be a sinner in need of a savior.
Yeah.
In fact, the Bible says that all of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So your story is as dramatic as it is. It's not any worse than the man down the street that's relying on his own righteousness and he's walking old ladies across the street all the time.
Yeah.
To God, it's still the same.
Yeah. I love that. And it's like, I mean, I love, the understanding from like Romans 1 where like God has made himself evident in his creation. And then Romans 3:23, it's like, that we've all sinned. And then Romans 6:23, well, the wages of that sin is death. But then like you go back like Romans 5:8, it's like, man, while knowing the worst thing you've ever done, Jesus willingly went to the cross and died for you.
Yeah.
Not in hopes of you would become perfect, while knowing the worst of you.
Yeah.
Jesus chose you. And it's like, that's why I love Romans, where it's like when you get to like Romans 12:1, it's like the therefore, it's like because of all this, in view of God's mercy, like a reasonable response is for us to live as a living sacrifice. Not to be conformed by the world, but transformed by the renewing of our mind. Why? So that we can discern what is God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. What have you? If I understand, Romans 11:39, right? By him, for him, through him, all things. So he is the creator, the initiator, and the sustainer of all things, including me. But he's withheld his wrath from me, not because I deserve it, because he loves me that much. And because I've been saved from his wrath by his love, because of Jesus' blood, a reasonable response is for me to act like it. Not to be perfect, but to be aware that there is a God that loves me that much and chooses to express himself through me, through our stories, so that we can tell people of his majesty. I love like I had these like really ugly wounds, but I've got these really cool scars that point to an amazing healer.
Yeah. Amen. Romans 5:9, since therefore we've been justified by his blood, how much more will we be saved by him? From the wrath of God. From the wrath of God that's so often lost in American Christianity. We're saved from the wrath of God by the blood of Christ. Once enemies, now adopted sons. With an inheritance to the kingdom. When you know that, when you've grasped that, you're loved, therefore you do. Now you could love your boys. And you could also tell them, boys, I will fail you. I love you, but I will fail you. But God will not.
I love that.
I love amazing.
So I mean, and just the I love the fact that like my boys, like especially Cannon and sometimes Lincoln, will travel with me, and it's like it's just I don't know, man. It's just like when they're at on Sunday when we're at church, if someone's asking them like, well, what does your mom and dad do? And he's like, my daddy teaches the Bible.
Amazing.
It's just, man. It's just like I just love my family so much, and it's just like, and it's not about like, oh, like dad's like did this or does that or he's on but like my wife will like send me pictures of like I was doing something and it was on TV, and it's like a picture of like our little boy like hugging the TV. It's just like
wow.
It's just so cool, man. But at the end of the day, it's like that's what I want for other people. That's why I tell my story with so much vulnerability and openness. It's like, man, my hope is for you, not that you'll live rightly. My hope is that you experience the abundance that Jesus Christ died and
Amen.
offers to you.
Amen.
Because so many, like we just need to realize, like John 10:10, it's like the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus, he's wanting to offer you abundant life. And what that's going to look like, number one, it's going to start with understanding, our biggest problem is sin, and the only solution to that is Jesus Christ. And from that, it's like, man, there's things that John 15, there's going to be things that need to be cut and pruned from your life. And that might be seasonal, but it might be, it might be friends. It might be habits, whatever it is. But if I am committed to God's word and committed to doing what it says, what's going to happen is there's going to be things in my life that press against me. And I'm either going to allow those things to be shed and moved away from me because I'm going to believe that God knows better than I do. Or I'm going to allow those things to conform me to something less than, and I'm going to feel empty and broken and dissatisfied, and disconnected and frustrated. And I'm going to experience anxiety and depression. And, I'm going to say, well, what am I supposed to do with my life? I feel so dissatisfied, and I'm going to try to medicate. It's like God saying, you're overcomplicating things. It's like, love me and trust that my word is enough. And it's like, when I'm looking at John 14:15, it's not say, if you love me, you'll obey my commandments. It's not saying, hey, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to withhold my love from you.
Right.
Or it's not, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to come down with this iron fist. It's like, man, if you understand that I'm a loving father, and the most important thing about you is that you're my son. And if that is the posture in which you have in your life, what you're going to experience is life the way I intended it to be for you. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be trials and tribulation and pain and hurt. John 16:33 is my favorite verse. I've told you all these things so that in me you can have peace. That in this world you will, not maybe, you will have tribulation, you will have trials, you will have trouble. People will hurt you, you will fail. There's going to be chaos that happens that you don't understand. It's going to hurt like heck sometimes, but you can take heart. You can be of good courage. Why? Because he's overcome the world. Not you. Courage is not found in you. Peace is not found in you. It's found in him. If you keep going back to him over and over and over and over again, you'll find what you're looking for. And that's what I want. It's like I spend a lot of my time telling people, hey, this is how you stop watching porn, or this is how you remove, behaviors from your life. Or like when I'm working with, sports teams, this is how you optimize your capacity. All of it is found in the same place. Understand your life is not about you. You were created to be connected to a creator. And the only way that you can do that is to surrender and submit your life to Jesus. And then from that, it gets slightly more complicated. But if you start there, you'll find everything you're looking for.
Wow. So Joshua, I was speaking at this men's conference thing in Alabama several months ago, and I opened it up to Q&A afterward. And then I said, I will stay here until the last person leaves if you have more questions. And so inevitably that when I do that, there are more people that have questions that are a little more private that don't want to ask it in front of everyone.
Sure.
So I noticed that there, this line forums, and people are like, I lost my aunt. She died of cancer. I'm struggling. And then the next guy comes up and he says, I lost my job and I'm struggling. I noticed there was one guy, he was a freshman at Auburn, and he was like making sure everyone got in front of him so he could be the last one in line. And then it comes up at the very end, there's three guys, all freshmen at Auburn, and two of them are asking me how they could better evangelize the college community. Give some practical ideas. And then they start to walk away, and then one peels off and he says, Can I tell you something? Yeah. The other two go away. He goes, and he kind of looks around. The room that now is empty. Everyone's gone, even the church that it's cleared out. And he said, I'm addicted to watching porn. And I don't know what to do. And I need help. I mean, he was desperate.
Yeah.
What do you say to that kid?
Yeah. Man, I would tell him that, man, you have a Father in heaven that loves you so much. And I'm so sorry that is what you're wrestling with. But number one, I'm so proud of you for saying it out loud. Because what the enemy doesn't want you to do, the thing that feels unmentionable, he doesn't want you to say it, because, the way that you own your past is to own it. Like not allow the past to own you. You have to own it. And the way that you own it is confession. James 5:16. There's so many people that they have salvation, but they don't have freedom. And freedom is found, James 5:16. When you confess unto one another, there can be a righteous man to pray for you so they can be healed. So there's people that have salvation, but they don't have healing. And it starts with saying, hey, man, number one, I'm so proud of you. And if you haven't done that, if you're listening to this and you're wrestling with whether it be pornography or gambling or whatever it is, this behavior that you have become a slave to and you feel like you can't get away from it, the first thing you need to do is to find someone that loves you, that loves Jesus, and confess it all. But what I would say is it's so easy to be vague when we confess. And that's why, if it's a man, you need to confess to a man, a woman to a woman. Find someone that you trust so that you can be honest, open, and transparent. And what I mean by that is the level of your confession is going to equate to the depth of your freedom.
Whoa,
because
say that again. That's good.
The depth of your confession is going to equate to the depth of your freedom. And I would just say, because it's easy to say, I'm looking at that website I shouldn't look at, and end up doing something I shouldn't. It's different than saying, this is the website that I go to. This is what I put in the search bar. I masturbate. I feel terrible about it. And sometimes I go back to it and I do it again the same night. And I end up crying out to God and saying, I'll never do it again. But I find myself here over and over again. I'm tired. And I just want to stop. Because when you say that, sometimes externally processing something out loud, you'll say, well, the shame that would cause you not to say what you were putting in the search bar is actually evidence of the brokenness that you have in your life. And it's like, man, once you say that, it's like, and if you have someone that you trust, it's like, man, you can start to kind of wrap your head around, man, there's something that is broken in my heart or my mind, and porn is just the symptom of a deeper problem. Like there's right. Something that, there's, for me to get the fruit of freedom, I need to get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is not porn. Like porn is a byproduct of some other brokenness in my life. Maybe someone hurt you. Maybe you saw something that you shouldn't have saw at an early age and you developed wrong thinking. Maybe, either something was done to you or you did something, or, maybe someone wasn't there for you and you're trying to use porn as a Band-Aid to cover up the thing that really hurts. So it's like, man, that's why there's the reason that people struggle with porn is an individualistic problem, because you've believed a lie about something.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
Yeah, so I would say, like, to that person, man, number one, I'm so proud of you for having the guts to do the thing that many don't. Say, hey, I'm wrestling with this, but now let's be honest, because are you struggling? Or are you willingly, participating in this sin? And that, the Bible tells us, God will not, give us anything beyond what we can bear, where it's like, without giving us a way out, Yeah. The fact of, we need to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, where it's like, I need to develop better emotional intelligence, in that when I feel something, I don't have to be a slave to that feeling or emotion.
Right.
And at the same time, I need trusted people in my life. Proverbs 27:6 talks about how, the wounds of a friend, right? I need people in my life that will not only pat me on the back, sometimes I need a kick in the butt,
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I need to be called out on wrong thinking or wrong behavior. So I would say to that person, man, number one, proud of you. Number two, what are you willing to do to get this out of your life?
And usually they'll say anything, Granger, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's like, okay, like, are you willing to get rid of your iPhone and get a flip phone?
Ooh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Because what we want to do is the bare minimum,
Right. Right.
That's Western, that's Western thinking. I don't want to develop discipline and obedience. I want an app, a pill, or a program.
Yeah.
But everything that's worth anything is on the other side of obedience and discipline and consistency. So I would say, what am I what do I need to remove from my life? I need to I need consistent confession in my life. I need to create boundaries in my life. I need to make it harder to get to the thing that I don't want to do. Then also, I need to identify triggers where it's like, I ended up on the porn site, but it started at Instagram. Maybe Instagram needs to go, or maybe I need to take inventory of the people that I follow on Instagram and say, hey, if there's something that someone is posting that is catalytic in a behavior that leads me in a direction that my life doesn't want to go, well, I need to remove that thing.
Yeah, that's good.
If I don't want any cookie, if I want to lose weight, I don't need to have cookies in my house,
Amen. Yeah.
And so I need to take inventory. What things are catalytic in wrong behaviors, and how can I get as far away from those things? Because that thinking of, well, how close to the line can I get without going over it? That's ignorant. Like, why would you do that?
It's foolish. Yeah.
So it's like, how far can I stay away from something that's going to be catalytic in me doing something I ought not to? Like, and even when I'm a fool, I need to admit and learn from what I did. Like, if I continue to trip over the same thing over and over again, and I don't look down and don't realize, hey, there is this thing that I keep tripping over, it needs to be removed, or I need another direction, right? I don't need to move this way. Then I'm being, foolish on myself. So I need boundaries. I need to identify triggers, and I need to commit to being honest with someone. And I would say what's even most important, and in the same way that God used Moses to lead his people out of Egypt, he lead the Israelites out of Egypt, God used the law to get Egypt out of them. The Bible, if you are committed to prayer and reading God's word, what happens is, the word of God is a two-edged sword, divides bone and marrow. And what's going to happen is you're going to read God's word, and it's going to conflict with how you're living. It's going to feel abrasive, and that's a good thing. But what I need to do is not shun away when I'm challenged. I need to step into what God is calling me to, and what he's calling you to is, I'm going to be responsible for my actions, and I'm going to execute, the last thing in the fruit of the Spirit, because I have the Spirit of God living in me. Guess what I have? I have the spirit of self-control. I don't have to be a slave to sin anymore. I can choose to say, even if I want to do it, I'm not. That's what Christian liberty is. It's not, what can I have access to doing? No, I have the power to say no to the things I even want to do. So like that's how you get there. So that's what I would say to the kid.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, I'm so proud of you, but man, you can't stop doing something you've been doing for 10 years in 30 minutes or 30 days. You need to make a plan, a battle plan of how do I want to, how can I become the person that I want to be? Well, I need to take inventory. I need to set boundaries. I need to create some core values that I'm committed to, because I'm not going to do what I want. I'm going to do what I'm committed to do. I'm going to be the man that I'm committed to being. So part of that is there's a list of things where these are priorities in my life, and they're not because of me. They're because of God and God's word. So I'm going to use those things as a tool to compare and contrast. Again, Romans 12:2. I'm going to compare and contrast. Is this beneficial? Is this going to be edifying for me? Or is it going to lead me in the wrong direction? Is this going to cause me to take 10 steps back?
Brilliant, dude. Hey, Joshua, you were a man of integrity. How crazy is it to hear that title?
I don't know, man. It's just like being the man that I am now. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
To our any cessationist friend I have out there, I'm like, man, if miracles are done, I'm dead. Yeah. I'm certainly not consistently teaching. I'm speaking at 2 marriage conferences this month. It's like
How crazy is that,
like,
man?
and it's like how, well, it's like I committed to following Jesus with all of my life, and then also I committed to loving my wife with all of my life, but in like all of my life, but in the way that Scripture calls me to.
Right.
And and the byproduct of that is like I learned a lot of like things of not to do. Where it's like that's where I'm going to start. I'm like, this is wrong thinking. But again, it's like I shared this in the beginning. It's like, man, love has nothing to do, and intimacy certainly has nothing to do with compliance.
Yeah.
It's like, man, because there's so many things that we learn wrongly because of sin, specifically because of pornography. It's like, man, if I'm trying to superimpose onto the person that I say that I'm dedicated to loving most, if I'm superimposing desires that I developed from a screen with my hand when I was a teenager, if I'm superimposing those things on my wife, is that love? Certainly not. So it's like, and then I can get upset with my spouse because she's not meeting my needs. Is she not meeting your needs, or are you trapped in perversion? Because what actually needs to happen is your mind needs to be eradicated of the perversion so that you can understand what love is, so that you can experience it, and then you can reciprocate it.
Well, and what's amazing is now the Lord is using you to speak into the lives of so many other people with a perspective that is very, very rare. Last thing I'll say, do you keep in touch with anybody from that industry? Has anyone come out of the industry and said, hey, I need to talk, Josh, I need to talk?
Hundreds.
Wow.
And then, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of those situations like didn't end up like I hoped.
Yeah, of course. That's because it's a miracle.
Yeah. Because I mean, I know 2 girls that have a life where they're healthy and whole, and it's because they're deeply rooted in a relationship with Jesus Christ. But man, I don't know not one man that was in the industry as long as I was that came out it's healthy and whole. But there's tons of guys that are still in the industry that at one time they looked up to me to say, hey, how can I become like him? But what I love is there's a lot of people that are that either text me or message me, and they're like, man, how did you get to where you are? And what they mean is that, how do you get to a place where at night you lay your head down on the pillow and you close your eyes and you're proud of the man that you are? Because it like, I mean, this, it doesn't matter what you have. If you don't have the thing that you need most, which is a relationship with Jesus, there is going to be chaos in your soul.
Yeah.
And there's going to be nothing that can fill that void. So for me, it's like, man, there was a lot of things that have happened, over this last decade of me following Jesus. But like the most true and most simple solution to the thing that whatever someone is struggling with is, man, fully surrender your life to Jesus. Yeah. Like, lay it all down.
Yeah.
Like all of the hurt, all of the pride, like all of it. And what's beautiful is Romans 8:28, like all means all. Like he will use like the worst of the worst and the best of the best, and he's going to take it all and he's going to put it in this pot, and what's going to come out of it is going to blow your mind, but it's all going to be for his glory. He's going to use it all. And that's what I love. Like there's nothing that, there's no training or experiences or places that I've traveled. There's tons of things that, like, man, obviously I shouldn't have done so many of things that I've did, but in spite of me, God uses all of it, and nothing is wasted in his economy. When we surrender and submit our lives to the person of Jesus, like Romans 8:28 is it, man, that he's going to use all things for his glory for those who love him. So.
Amen. I don't think there's a better way to end the conversation. Porn star to preacher, explained best by Paul's letter to the Romans. That's what
Amen.
this conversation's been. Bro, I love you so much, man. And I love this conversation. I love you as a brother in Christ. And maybe we could have another one. I feel like we could have an entirely new conversation about different things.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get to.
There's so much we didn't get to.
Also, I know this is like far out, but Zach wanted me to ask you if you were good when you were in Lynchburg. If me, you, and him could sit down and do a podcast.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. Man, we also didn't get into your book, which is incredible, and so helpful. We share publisher on that as well.
Yeah.
What are the 7 lies off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, so the two that I talk about the most are purpose and intimacy. But I would say like that, like the intimacy one is like the most important one. I would say like this counterfeit intimacy, this imitation intimacy, like that's what I'm preaching on this whole year. Because the thing in which, like, if you find the thing that your heart is just yearning for,
yeah,
which is connection with God the Father through the person of Jesus Christ, and like fully step into being sensitive to the Spirit of God, man, that's where, like, if you understand, like, in the fullness of the Trinity, like how much God just absolutely adores you and wants to equip you to walk in abundance in this world, like that's where it's at. And we settle for so many imitations, but real intimacy, true intimacy, is found in proximity to God. And that's what I want people to understand. It's like the last chapter, if I even talk about it, that would be a whole other tangent, but it's like,
because I think, 7 lies that'll ruin your life. We could use each lie and make a different podcast, and have a whole new discussion. But I think that'll be for another time.
Yeah.
I love you, bro. I'll see you in a few months too.
Yeah, man. Love you, bro. So good to see you.
You too. Thank you. Thanks for joining me on the Granger Smith podcast. I appreciate all of you guys. You could help me out by rating this podcast on iTunes. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to this channel, hit that little like button and the notifications bell so that you never miss any time I upload a video. Yee yee.